Okay, I think we're going to get started. I'd like to welcome everybody to coming out today. Thank you for coming out today. We appreciate it. We thought this would be a great opportunity to kind of get really in depth on the new stormwater standards that we have. We encourage questions. We don't want to hold them till the end. So if you have any questions, concerns, comments, we'll be happy to answer them or tell you that somebody else will answer them for me. So I usually like to start out something like this with a joke or two to kind of loosen things up a little bit. So I'm going to start first with an engineering joke. I'm sure you've all heard it already, but how can you tell an introvert engineer from an extrovert engineer? The extrovert is staring at your shoes. I got a couple other here by request of one of our staff. She said I had to do some dad jokes. So I got a couple of dad jokes. My wife said that I should start doing lunges to stay in shape. That would be a big step forward. Let's see. Singing in the shower is fun until you get soap in your mouth. Then it's a soap opera. And last but not least, how do you follow Will Smith in the snow? You follow the Fresh Prince. Exactly the reaction I was looking for. All right, so I am kind of the MC of this, because, well, they said your name's Mason Clark, so you have to be the MC. Another dad joke. Okay, so I'm going to introduce myself first, and then as the other speakers get up, Tyler, Don, and Lenny, I'll also introduce them. Tyler and Don gave me bios. Lenny did not. So that means I get to make it up. So anyway, I'll start with me, Mason Clark, staff engineer at Sandy City. I've been there for about 6.5 years or so. I love working at Sandy City. Love working with all of you. I think I've worked with just about everybody in this room. And despite how the meetings go, sometimes I actually do like you guys. Okay, just kidding. So I graduated from the University of Utah. Let's see, I got my PE about 4 years ago, and currently working on the CFM. That's super fun. I thought I was done taking tests, but apparently not. So other than that, I'm going to start in kind of the introduction of what we're doing here today. So this is the focus of the presentation. We're going to go over the new storm drain design standards and requirements that we have implemented, about a year ago, Tyler? We're going to go over our LID toolbox. This is just a tool to help with the new LID standards and the post-construction stormwater maintenance agreements. The reason that we did the updates was because the state told us to, basically, in a nutshell. We also wanted to update and streamline our standards and make sure that they were easily accessible, easily understood. We're still working on that. I know our website is awesome, but bear with us. We're trying to work on that the best we can. So because we are under the Jordan Valley permit, we are a small MS4. We have to follow the state standards. The state required us to implement LID measures as well as revisions to our stormwater standards because of those revisions. LID, low impact development. The state standards were that if it's a new development above an acre, we must retain the 80th percentile storm. Or a redevelopment that's above an acre, or you're increasing the impervious area by more than 10%. Then you'll have to retain the 80th percentile. This is actually, I've ran into a lot of individuals who think that regardless, you have to do the 80th percentile. It's actually This doesn't affect a lot of properties in Sandy because we are an infill city. There's a lot of development that don't have to do the LID measures. But if you do, we have stuff for you to help you out with that. So the revisions to our ordinances and the storm design standards encompass all of these things: stormwater quality treatment, design, rainfall and depth distribution methods, and modeling systems. So what we wanted to do is, typically in the past, we've done rational method, that's it, right? And it's kind of been a rigid way of thinking. We wanted to kind of expand that. We trust you guys as engineers and your design capabilities. We wanted to give you that that purview in your design. So we're making it a lot easier to use those abilities that you have. Instead of just having a rigid standard, we're expanding that a little bit. Is that, yeah. So we also wanted to allow options for LID for water quality treatment, even if you're not required to do it, that maybe these creative ideas can give you the ability to implement water quality while also meeting the flow requirements that we have. And also we wanted to implement, how can we protect water in the storm or the water quality protection zones, well protection zones, while also meeting state standards with LID, but also wanting to treat and make sure the water quality is good, right? That's going into the ground. As well as, you know, submittal requirements with COVID and working for remotely and from home. We wanted to get on the digital review bandwagon, which has been desperately needed for many, many years. So we're really happy that we're finally moving in that direction. That's been a huge behemoth effort, but we are moving forward with that. With that, Tyler's going to start here after I introduce him and his bio. Let's see what he sent me. So Tyler grew up in California. Don't hold that against him. And moved to Spanish Fork when he was, what, 14, Tyler? Is that right, 15? He got his associate's degree from Utah Valley University and later went to Utah State University to get his bachelor's and master's degree. Don't hold that against him either. Yeah, well, I guess, yeah, Lenny, BYU. Okay, well, we'll get there. So after graduation, he worked for Hanson and Luce for almost 10 years, and he has been working with Public Utilities now as the chief engineer and stormwater manager, floodplain manager for 8 years. And he has 4 children, 3 girls and 1 boy, 15, 13, 11, 7. And he says he enjoys spending time with his family, which is that, no, I'm just kidding. And says playing sports, especially pickleball. I think it's exclusively pickleball. He's like a pickleball fanatic. And he likes coaching soccer and going on vacation with his family. So without further ado, I introduce to you Tyler Shelley.
Wow, thanks for that introduction. So we've been working on these standards for quite a while, and we feel really good about these standards. It's been probably a couple of years that we wanted to come up with some standards that just made sense, and kind of work together with both the flow control, stormwater flow control, and water quality. And we think we have a pretty good fit here. So I'm really anxious to hear what you guys think about this and what your thoughts are on implementing it. So in our new standards, there's this one table that I'll point you guys to, and I highly recommend that this is kind of the first place you go when you're starting a project, to know what your requirements for your particular project will be. And these are all on the website. In fact, we can even send this presentation out to you guys I thought about sending it out to you guys yesterday so you could have it during the presentation, kind of right there close to you, but then I was worried that people wouldn't come. So I was like, nah, we're not gonna do that. So first of all, we're separating this out from new development and redevelopment, consistent with the state's requirements, right? So there are three kind of levels of these, of each. One, total disturbance less than an acre. The one to the far right where it's total disturbance less than, or sorry, greater than or equal to an acre, or part of a common plan of development, is basically that state, you know, when you fall into that needing to meet all the SWIP, all the new permit requirements, right? These other two are what we've kind of identified as what we want for the other levels. So the first one, total disturbance less than an acre, total impervious area less than 6,000 square feet and not part of a common plan of development or so. The next one is total development less than an acre and impervious area greater than 6,000 square feet, and not part of a common plan of development. And then I already mentioned the other. Our redevelopment is the same levels of criteria, other than for that, we add in that the increase in impervious area of the 10%. So what we require now is what we call the drainage plan. There are two elements of the drainage plan. There's a stormwater report, a stormwater analysis report that we, as we call it, and also the grading and drainage plan that you're typically, you've done always. There are different levels, and you can see how they line up with each of the levels of criteria that we've lined out there. You may only have to do a conceptual drainage plan. That is it. Could be a preliminary, a final. The way we've laid out the requirements for these, if you're in the end required to do a final drainage plan, they all build upon each other. So we don't want you submitting, a conceptual and then the preliminary is completely different, and it should just build right upon each other. And you're just adding a little bit more detail with each level. The other one is the stormwater quality report. And the state requires this. They have this in their LID, the Utah LID guide. I can't remember the full name of it, but it's that thick document that Michael Baker put together. There's the stormwater quality report that they require, we require as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We've put together an LID toolbox where we have kind of populated some of that for you already, so you're not having to search it and find all the information every time for Sandy City specifically. All right, for the site requirements, this is where it tells you, so Mason mentioned that not everywhere has to meet all these LID standards. This table tells you which projects will need to meet what level of requirement. Okay, so the treatment prior to discharge, and then also that retention of the 80th percentile, where I'm going to call it water quality volume from here forward. So in our requirements, we're going to focus on, and I apologize, you're going to have to listen to me a lot because I've been heavily involved in development of these. So I figured I probably should just present all of this portion, and then others will follow on other things. But I'm going to focus on water quality requirements, the hydrology, and the hydraulics. Right now, I'm going to focus on water quality. So back to our table 1. So if you have to treat the stormwater discharge, we have 2 levels of treatment that we require. And the first one is the basic treatment facility, and the other is pre-treatment facility. All right. I'm going to talk about the basic treatment facility, and what this is this is where you use the LID features that we will allow in Sandy City. The state requires that you allow each MS4 allow 7 BMPs, LID BMPs, and if we don't, then you can use whatever you want. We've elected to choose the ones we want. So bioretention, permeable pavement, wetland, dry or wet pond, vegetated swell, underground detention, infiltration, vegetated strip, and vegetated basin, which we, in my mind, is kind of that typical detention pond that has always been done in the past. We consider that an LID BMP. It is, if it's designed appropriately. Should probably silence my phone. Okay, the second is the pretreatment facility. A pretreatment facility is required only if the site is what we call a high use site. I'm going to talk about what that is here shortly. But the pretreatment is always required upstream of a basic treatment facility. Those include hydrodynamic separator, oil water separator, media filters, and other, if you feel like you want to propose something that, and we're okay with it. All right, so I talked about the high use site. So no longer, typically in the past, we've said, oh, you have a parking lot, well, you're sticking in an oil water separator no matter what, That's no longer the case.
What was the reasoning requiring it to be upstream? Basic treatment.
Yeah, that's
It increased the cost quite a bit. I did prove that.
okay. The thought is that we, with knowing that there will be infiltration, that we would prefer to have it go through the pretreatment prior to the where it would be infiltrating. And on a case-by-case basis, we would probably consider looking at other things that you're proposing that make sense. The high use sites. Again, these pre-treatment not required for every site, but the high use sites, a long list here. So you'll need to go through and see if your project falls into this. It's definitely not every site, but this does include, some parking lots where traffic count exceeds 100 vehicles per 1,000 square feet of the gross building area. This typically includes like supermarkets, convenience stores, gas stations, auto operations or fleet maintenance facilities, salt sand piles, and sumps. So if there's ever going to be a sump, the pretreatment facility would have to go upstream of it. All right, our water quality capture volume. So our precip depth that we've defined for Sandy City is a 1/2 inch. We require that you calculate that volume using the SCS curve number method. You retain and infiltrate that volume where feasible. And also, this is a big thing that we really spend a lot of time in trying to figure out how to incorporate this water quality capture volume into the flow control elements of your site. Yeah. Okay. Correct. Yeah, we do. We do. And that's all in our LID toolbox. And I'll talk about that here shortly. All right, so I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit to a little bit of hydraulics to kind of tie that water quality volume in with our flow control. So here's another critical table for you. So I talked about table 1 is knowing what your requirements of your site will be. Table 10 is like the next one. All right, this is where we lay out our stormwater flow control options. Mason mentioned that, I can't remember where I was going with that, but our flow control options. Oh, you talked about kind of giving them options. this is kind of your menu of options for your flow control. We have options A, B1, B2, B3. And kind of the idea here is that you'd start at the top and kind of work your way down. However, that is not required. You can pick any one of these. And a couple of things I wanted to point out here. Oh, each option other than B3 requires an analysis demonstrating that the 100-year 3-hour overflow will be safely routed, to the street and not flood structures. And even when it makes it to the street, that you're not going to end up at the bottom of a cul-de-sac and flood a basement. All right, so you have to look at that flow to see what happens. Also, these options include full retention, some are detention. There are combined detention options here. And for detention, anywhere where there is detention, the flow control, we require that the release rate is still that 0.2 CFS per acre. Typically, could go down to 0.1 in some situations, depending on the downstream system capacity. Okay, one last thing I want to point out here before I look at each option individually. Wherever there is retention, you're looking at the storm duration of a 24-hour storm. When you're looking at detention, it's the 3-hour. All right, option A is kind of this typical, what many I think consider to be that true LID, where you're just retaining everything all throughout your site. That is, again, the 10-year, 24-hour volume that you're retaining for that. You can include infiltration in your calculations. You can use the bioretention, rain gardens, bioswales, any one of those LID BMPs, one of the 7 that we have identified. Option B1. So this option is detaining the 10-year 3-hour, but you can use it in combination with that option A with some retention. All right, you could have some retention in one spot, detention for the other. The whole site still needs to be controlled at that 0.2 CFS or 0.1 CFS per acre. If you are kind of doing that retention detention combo, in the retention portion, you can include your water quality volume within that retention volume, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. I think we presented the same presentation to Sandy City staff yesterday. I kind of put this in here for them mainly, but that's just to show that, you could with that same option, B1 or B2, if you have your detention pond, you could have your retention volume within that pond. It just needs to sit below your outlet. Okay, option B2. Very similar to B1. In fact, I think the big difference here is that there is potential for needing to detain the 100-year event. And the reason for that is a situation that I think of would be that you have a detention pond. There is a system, a downstream system that you can connect to, that you can discharge your stormwater to. However, you do your 100-year 3-hour overflow, routing of the 100-year event, and you find that, oh my gosh, there is no way the 100-year can't go anywhere. You're going to have to detain the 100-year. If you can detain it, I guess you could retain it, which pushes you to option B3. I don't think anybody would want to do that because you have a connection where you could discharge this to. But you're going to have to detain the 100-year. In that situation, you now have to also look at your conveyances. You have to be able to actually convey your 100-year event into your pond, right? So there are some different things that you have to look at. Option B3 is this is now where you're having to retain the 100-year, 24-hour event. This is in a situation where there's no system downstream for you to connect to. The 100-year event, you're going to flood someone. Unfortunately, this is that option. I'm hoping that not many have to use this option, but it is there in case it's needed. Yeah.
Question on the 100-year, 24 hours. Sorry, the 100-year, 3-hour storm.
Yeah.
Does the criteria provide the distribution for that? Is it different from the modified Farmer Fletcher for the 10-year, 3-hour?
So we have a 3-hour storm duration that we have for you to use. Is that?
So that would the distribution be the same?
Yeah.
Just you're changing the text.
Yep, the 3-hour. Okay. If there are any other questions on that? All right, so allowable infiltration. So this map, although it's not current, kind of gives you an idea of where infiltration is not allowed. This is in our LID toolbox, but we will not allow any infiltration in our drinking water source protection zones 1 and 2. If they're clay soils, high groundwater within 2 feet of the bottom of your infiltration feature, contaminated soils, and if the slopes are greater than 10%. We've shown some areas there where we've kind of just anticipated that it's not going to be feasible to go there. I think the only thing that we're showing, and this actually isn't accurate, but within the zones 1 and 2, absolutely no infiltration. Other than that, it's kind of on you do your field work and determine if it's feasible or not. And I'm going to get into some of these details. So, Mason?
We also have a GIS map layer that we can show you kind of those no-go zones. You can kind of see it up here. It's kind of where the striping is. But we can send that to you for your area and easily access. So that would eliminate that quickly if that's the.
And again, I think that's the main thing is just those drinking water source protection zones 1 and 2. That's basically, you can't infiltrate here. Other than that, this is kind of giving you just a guess. All right, sorry. Okay, so if you cannot infiltrate stormwater, what do you do? That's what I'm going to talk about now. So we've kind of defined this as, and I think the state guide kind of does this somewhat, but we've separated our retention and infiltration BMPs, and then we have our flow through BMPs. If you cannot use any of the retention infiltration BMPs, it's going to push you to the flow through BMPs. And the reason we're doing this is, as you all know, the state has basically mandated that it's actually shown there in the requirement there. It says, if retention of the water quality volume is infeasible, then a rationale shall be provided. So what we've done at Sandy City is we've tried, through all of this work that we've done, we're trying to give you a good rationale to say that, hey, I can't do infiltration here. I'm going to use this method. All right. And you're going to document that in your stormwater. Remember, I told you there's that drainage plan, the 2 elements. You're going to document it in your report. And part of that report is that water quality report that the state requires. All right, retention versus flow through. We've listed our 7 BMPs here. Well, there's actually 8 listed, but I think a couple have been just separated out a little bit for clarification. If you're using your retention and infiltration, you're designing that facility for your 10-year, 24-hour. And again, that's in that flow control table. Or if you're, depending on the option, you could have your water quality volume separate from the rest of it. However, you have to demonstrate that you are going to infiltrate within 72 hours. That it all infiltrates into the ground. Okay, for your flow through, if you're if this is what you're going to use, and we're going to walk through how you determine which one you're using, but your design now you're looking at just your flow rather than your volume. This is your 2-year, 3-hour storm event. Okay, I'm going to go for maybe just another 5 minutes, and then we'll break for like 10 minutes. Get everyone grab your food, drink, go to the bathroom, whatever. All right, so this is our Sandy City LID toolbox. This is supplemental to the Utah LID guide. It provides guidance, clarification. It provides you an opportunity to demonstrate that, hey, I cannot do this water quality volume because I can't infiltrate, so I'm using this other. We have flow charts. We've taken the state's flow charts out of their guide, and we've modified it for Sandy City specific. In that, we have that same stormwater flow control options table. We have example calculations. We have the equations for the SCS curve number method that was asked earlier. It walks you through very simply how to do this. And I'm sure most of you, will have no problem, but it should be very helpful. In the LID toolbox, we have that same map, although it's outdated. We have fact sheets for each of the 7 BMPs, and that even has guidance for the benefits, constraints, siting applications. In fact, we actually require you to include these fact sheets in your stormwater analysis report, and you can address the different things in your report with that. All right, this is the water quality report that I talked about. We took the states, we added in on that first page everything that is Sandy City specific, and you just filling out the project information, and then on that first page, and then the other is you're looking at your subbasins and kind of breaking them out and calculating everything that it requires. All right, I'm going to go through an example here, and then we'll break for lunch. All right, so this was just recently a report was submitted, and I really liked kind of their layout here. Although we haven't gone into detail of reviewing all the details of it, I think it's a very good, showing very well how this is to be used and how we want it to be used. I think if you use it this way, it will make it a lot easier for us as we review it. And if it's not easy for us to review, a lot of times we kick it back and just say, hey, please resubmit or something, as you guys all know. So for first one, so again, they kind of split this up into 2 subbasins, the north half and the south half. This is a industrial site just up the hill here that's being proposed. Okay, you walk through. Does groundwater separation meet minimum requirement? Greater than 2 feet to the historic groundwater level? Yes. Pushes you to the next one. Is infiltration rate acceptable? No. It pushes you to this other where, okay, then you need to consider the flow through BMPs. Kicks you to flow chart B. I'm not going to walk through all the details, but can vegetation be established at flow through BMP? Yes. Walks you all the way down, and they ended up using bioswale and vegetated strip. So we're going to talk about this, but they could not infiltrate. Similar to this site here, we actually did a bunch of LID here. There's no infiltration. Groundwater super high, but they use flow through BMPs for that treatment aspect. Okay. All right, that was the north half. Okay, yeah, sorry, no. So these flow charts are in our LID toolbox, and they just kind of bubbled around, kind of they're going through the flow chart that's already there. Does that make sense? Okay, now the south half, right off the bat, so this is the south end where the groundwater is very high. Does groundwater separation meet the minimum requirement? No. Kicks them straight over to the flow through BMPs, And then they walk through this, they, in that, on the south half of the site, they couldn't even use any of the bioswales. It kicked them right to the hydrodynamic separator, which was the only option they could use. So north half, they're using vegetative swells. South half, they're using hydrodynamic separators. That takes care of their water quality part of it. The flow control, they were still meeting the detention requirements. All right, this is their stormwater quality report. The black is, what was there already. Blue is what they added. This just kind of shows you that if, we're going to have to see these reports every time now. So we haven't really been particular about receiving these, but this was kind of our kickoff saying, hey, from this point forward, I would highly recommend just walk through our document and submit everything we're asking for. In fact, Lenny's going to talk about some checklists that we've developed that you can have to help you. All right, I think that's probably a good place to break. Everyone go grab some lunch, grab a drink, use the bathroom, whatever, and we'll start up here in about 10 minutes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Here's upfront and personal, you can see it all. All right, hey, did everyone get a chance to sign the sign-in sheet? Okay. Oh, and we are gonna send out some certificates for 2 hours of continuing education. I'm going to go ahead and get started. You can continue eating. You're welcome to go, like Mason said, go back, grab some drinks while I'm talking. That's no problem at all. All right, so we talked about the water quality part of our requirements. I'm getting now into the hydrology requirements. So let's see where we at. Okay, so our precipitation depths that we require to be used now are to be pulled off of the NOAA Atlas 14 website. That'll give you the 10-year, 100-year, and the 2-year for the water quality flows requirements. All right, the distribution that we require to be used is the 3-hour storm duration. I believe Salt Lake County. This was developed by Salt Lake County originally, and we've adopted it. Our storm drainage criteria is we have our minor storm, which is we consider to be the 10-year event, which is to be contained within the right-of-way. That'd be in your storm drains, your curb and gutter, and even back to the back of sidewalk in most cases. The major storm is your 100-year event. That is for, you have to contain the water, basically not flood structures, to keep it simple. So when we require that, follow that 100-year 3-hour storm down through your site and where it's leaving, if we want to know that it's not going to end up at the bottom of a cul-de-sac, a downhill cul-de-sac, sorry. Yeah. Say that again.
Routing 100 through the pipe system.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you're having to provide detention for the 100-year event, it's that stormwater, the flow control option B2 or B3. You need to make sure that your pipes can convey the 100-year, right? Go ahead, Bart.
To make sure when you guys are sizing your ponds and you have detention, but it's way off site from like the public roadway. Make sure that those pipes, if you're planning on routing 100-year to the street, the pipe system is capable of flowing 100-year then.
We want the 100-year to get to the pond.
Yes, we want the 100-year to get to the pond, but we also want the 100-year from the pond. If it's a 10-year pond, we want that 100-year to be able to get to the street. We're using a piping system for that. We need to be able to convey it.
Got it. Got it.
So it would be, because we have to route the 100-year 3-hour, it would have to be the 100-year.
3-hour. Yeah, for your design flows.
The distribution, sorry to ask this twice.
Yeah.
The distribution for the 100-year, the distribution for the 10-year, is the same distribution.
Exactly. Yes. All right. So previous to now, you could use the rational method for everything. We didn't want to get rid of that completely. We want to allow the rational method because there are good applications for that. But you can size your pipes using the rational method for drainage areas up to 10 acres, which, to be honest, probably is 95% of the sites out there. So over 10 acres, you're going to have to model that using one of our approved models, which is EPA SWIM or HEC HMS. Obviously, HEC HMS does not have the hydraulic capability, so you're going to have to come up with your flows and then use Manning's equation to size your pipes. These are acceptable models. So you no longer can, we had kind of a spreadsheet that calculated detention volumes. We're not using that anymore. For sizing your detention ponds, you now have to use one of these two approved models. And along with that, you have to use the SCS curve number method for infiltration. We've also provided allowable curve numbers. So we have the allowable curve numbers for developed urban areas. And you'll notice that we've only provided those for the soil groups C and D. It has to be one of those two. And then also for undeveloped areas, we've provided curve numbers for that as well. All right, this is a big one. So your infiltration rates. We're requiring wherever you are going to be infiltrating stormwater into the ground, we're now requiring this double ring infiltrometer test to come up with your infiltration rates. There are certain requirements where you have to do a certain number per square foot of area of that infiltration system. And you would pick them, you go with the minimum or the lowest of all of the tests. In some cases, you may prefer not to do the test. We've provided you a table, which is very conservative, that you could go ahead and pick pick off infiltration rate based on the geotech study that was done. Yeah, yep. And again, this is all laid out in our standards now. Yeah,
We did do the safety factor, we applied to that.
yes. Yep, you would take, and it applies for both, that if you're doing the test or pulling the value off the table, it's a 2.5 safety factor. Yeah.
Just to confirm, the table does not already have a safety factor.
Correct. It does not. You would pick the value off the table, and this is explained in our requirements. You pick the value and divide it by 2.5 to come up with the infiltration rate that you're going to use. In most situations, you're going to, this is the infiltration rate that you're going to demonstrate that the stormwater will have infiltrated within the 72 hours. So as you talk to the developers, this is a big one. And as you get the word out to the geotech that will be used, that you know, I would highly recommend you use this test if you don't want to use the more conservative number off the table. Yeah.
So in those situations where we're dealing with the heavy clay soil.
If you cannot infiltrate. So again, so that takes us right back to where we were at before, going through those flow charts. So if you, right here, if you find, this is where you're gonna have to walk through and say, and you find that your infiltration rates are not acceptable, it pushes you to these other LID options, your flow through, rather than your retention and infiltration. So that's, hopefully this makes sense. Right, so you're either using your infiltration BMPs. If you're finding that that's not going to work, then you're using the flow through for your treatment. In some cases, they may have to be lined, the flow through BMPs, if the groundwater is too high, or yeah. Does that help? Okay. We haven't. Yeah. No, we haven't. Okay. Any other questions here? All right, I'm not going to get into the details of all this, but we do have design criteria, hydraulic design criteria for your street design and drainage, your gutter flows, your the spread, encroachment, and your inundation standards. So look at those, your storm drain inlets, your storm drains. There are some new requirements there that I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, because I think you guys, they're pretty standard. We talked about this. I wanted to address this in the water quality section so you could see how they tie together with the water quality. But we've talked about the options here. All right, your flow control elements need to be designed to accommodate some very specific items that we've now laid out. Your roads. So we're talking that flow control feature, right? Those different options that we've laid out, your detention, retention. So it has to be designed to accommodate the roads, curb and gutter, driveways, park strips, sidewalks, fronts of yards that slope toward the street, portions of homes that drain towards the street, and other areas that are tributary to the street. So depending on your site, if things are even from the backyards are sloping towards the street, and we'll get there, it has to be designed for that. And obviously you're going to have to make assumptions on some of the houses and just include that in your report. You know, as far as the portions of the house that are draining to the street. For the parts of the development that are not draining to the street and to those more regional facilities, This is where each individual lot is required to manage their own stormwater. A lot, this typically is when you're getting into like a single family home that's being built. Well, it does have to be demonstrated. This gets challenging at times, but it has to be demonstrated that they are going to manage their stormwater. So this would require some sort of a pond or swales, berms around the property. And then as the homeowner comes in landscaping their property, although we don't have a good way of controlling this, they are still required to keep that stormwater on their site. So that's all, because we can't really control that at that point, we do require these certain notes on the plat. So not a whole lot I can say about that. All right, this is a big one too. And by the way, you're welcome. So yeah. I just thought I just pictured Moana. You're welcome. So the letter of conformance. So we are, and this has been kind of a requirement in the past as well, but we're kind of adding to this because we have 2 inspectors that handle the whole city, and they are not experts in all of these new LID water quality units. Just not a possibility to have them sign off on all these things. So we're requiring a letter of conformance for the construction of the stormwater flow control elements and all of the treatment facilities. So this includes your detention and retention features, your LID BMPs, oil water separators, your sumps. What this means to you guys is obviously you've got to let your the developers know that this has to be included in your scope. And so you will need to be involved during construction, and we'll expect we'll need this letter signed and stamped that it was constructed per the design for us to release the bond. Yeah. All projects. Yeah.
Basically, we want you to be responsible for your own design. You don't want them to stamp the design, correct?
And I think you guys want that as well, but a lot of times it's probably hard to get that to tell the developers, hey, you need me during that time, but we're requiring that now.
Are you requiring us to have any inspection qualifications?
No.
Correct.
Yeah, just a letter signed and stamped. We have talked about that, but I think that's a really good idea. I think we'll work on that. An example that you could use. Can somebody, Dawn, can you get somebody write that down? That, okay, all right. Perfect. I don't even know. I already forgot. So we would, it's probably something we need to clarify and define, but this could be the supplier could sign off on certain products. Could be even a surveyor, I think, if they're out surveying the pond, or I think it would come back to the engineer, because the surveyor would verify volumes and provided to the engineer. But we would accept from a supplier saying that it was installed appropriately.
We have been taxed on a separate time. basically to propose any oil water separator. And we were like, sure, if the manufacturer is there, looking at your product, making sure it's installed correctly, because it's their product. So, I mean, otherwise, we would just have, we don't wanna be in the business of just trying to pull it for you. You know what I mean? We have relaxed that, therefore, the manufacturers need to step it up.
Okay. So that's my portion of the presentation. Don's gonna take over from here, but are there any other questions for me? Man, you guys are a lot easier than the city people. Gosh.
Going back to that table 10, option B2. So you're required to detain the 10-year and not the 3-year.
Okay, so that'd be option B2. It's a little unclear. It's kind of confusing. I wish we would have done this a little differently, but that is just in the situation where you have, say, you cannot route the 100-year and there's an area that you have to detain the 100-year, but the requirement is the 10-year. Yeah, if that makes sense. I wish we would have done this. We'll probably make a change here in future versions, but the requirement is 10-year, 24-hour, unless you cannot handle,
Also, the downstream.
exactly. Anything else?
Give Tyler a little hand of applause. Maybe a short hand. I can do that because I'm tall. Okay, so I'm going to introduce to you Dawn Barbie. She has been at the city now for 15 years. She received her bachelor's degree in social behavioral science. So she's going to be analyzing all of you as she speaks. She's available afterwards to give you a bio on yourself. So she has been with Public Utilities for the last 5 years, and I believe has been doing the stormwater quality coordinator position for 2 years now. And she is very passionate about stormwater. Don't spill anything in the city. She will show up like that. Without further ado, Dawn Barbie, she's going to discuss the post-construction stormwater maintenance agreement. Sorry. There we go.
Is this recording? Didn't look like it was. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay. Hi. Okay. So, like I said, I'm Dawn. I'm the stormwater quality coordinator, for the city. I could talk stormwater all day long. I absolutely love it. I'm not one taking pictures on vacation. Look at this. You know, think I'm crazy. The what? Someone else? Okay, so I did want to point out one thing this is the state's toolbox. And they do have, in regards to vegetation, some examples as well as, what they're good for. If you ever need to have a plan or have questions about what might be good for certain, bioswales or whatever. The great resource, I'm actually adding to it. And I'm going to put this on our website if you're interested. So not only is it great for stormwater, but also is it water usage, is it tolerant for salt or maintenance, those kinds of things. So if you want that information, I'll put that on the website. It's kind of like my little baby passion on the side with everything else. Okay. So my presentation, the rest of this is going to be about post-construction maintenance agreements. And we've had some recently people in their design were either not getting the post-constructions or there's a lot of confusion about what we're looking for. So this presentation is just to kind of clarify what our expectations are. Let's see. So our intention with this plan is that 2 years from now, when the inspection needs to happen on the site and needs to be documented and that information sent to us, that it's very clear and concise. You know, what is on this property, and I'll get into that a little bit more. I'm a little ahead of myself here. And when we're talking about clear and concise, USWAC, the Utah Stormwater Association, something coalition, we came up with this template, and it's very complicated. We get some of these post-constructions and they're like 30 pages because they have all the stormwater calculations and all that craziness. But here at the city, we do that all in the design phase and in the approval phases. So, you know, let's make it simple. Okay, this is what we're looking for. So the agreement itself is pretty standard. You know, the site information as well as the owner information, have it notarized. Once it's notarized, then it's finalized. Exhibit A is, so it's you can either use the parcel plat information, legal description, one or the other, both, what have you. And then we send this off obviously to the county. Exhibit B is the actual inspection form, highlighted where they can do their inspection, email it to us. They're in compliance. Every 5 years, we go out and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we're in compliance. So again, very straightforward. I did want to point one thing out just in case you're not aware. Recently, the state came in and said if you have an oil water separator on your property, that's being maintained and documentation sent to the city every 6 months. So that's going to be something that's going to, for sure, working out what that's going to look like, really. Okay. Now, Exhibit C, this is where we, again, have a lot of questions and problems and issues. We are looking for a very clean document. What materials are used? Where are things located? Who's responsible? Is it private, public? You know. And I have a checklist. I'll show you that, and that might be a little easier. These are all the things that we're looking for. So this is on the website. I can email it to you if you have any questions. But again, it's the whole point is 2 years from now, you've got a maintenance company come in, or you've got an employee that needs to do the maintenance. What do they need to do? What are they looking at? What do they need to maintain, and how do they maintain it? So if you've got some specialized hydro blah, blah, blah thing, you know, include that information in the post-construction information so that that maintenance company knows what they're dealing with. Does it make sense? Because I mean, it's been very like kind of convoluted on what this plan is, or how we view it should be. This is another one. It's a storage company. Just want to show that, you know, take off any layers or anything that are not necessary, because we get some and they've got the drainage and the erosion and all this stuff, and it really muddies what we're looking for future. And this is even one that's, you know, I took a highlighter to one and said, okay, this is what we want, you know, keep it simple. And then I did want to show you, this is the actual post-construction for this property. So it's pretty advanced, and sometimes we get people with very simple projects trying to get crazy like this. This is for just big, complicated projects. Oh, and he's not even here to defend himself. Nice. You're right. So we just wanted to highlight that anytime we do a revision, I always have a revision date listed on these, and I'll go back to that really quickly. I'm really good about if I make any changes to that agreement, I update it and put it on the web. So if you can avoid downloading it and reusing it for projects, because more like I get kicked back sometimes. I'm like, okay, this is from like 5 years ago. And our whole thing is just to get you moving through your projects. We want to help you. We want to streamline. We want to make it easy, and anything we can do to accomplish that. We are game. Any questions? Awesome. Yeah, call me if you've got any questions. I'll give contact information. And now it's Lenny's turn. Oh, you have the bio. Yeah.
I have a comment. So not every project requires doing a 2-lot subdivision, obviously, unless you're putting a pond, a big pond that HOAs maintains, and you don't need to do a post. Then typically, a post-construction agreement is for commercial projects or HOA, maintain road, any of those type of projects that require maintenance.
Thank you, Lenny, for the clarification. Appreciate that.
No, it's away from me.
What did you say?
Okay, everybody give Don a big round of applause. Thanks, Don. And now to introduce our last speaker, his name is Lenny Shantha Huang. I know I'm close, but he's gonna tell me I was wrong. So Lenny didn't give me a bio, so I'm gonna do it for him. Lenny has been with the city since 2006. I believe that's what, 16 years, right? Let's see, he likes long walks on the beach. He loves contemplating things on the beach with the waves crashing behind him. He loves NSYNC, his favorite band. Maybe a little bit of Britney Spears, but mostly NSYNC. Let's see, what else? He went to BYU. Let's see, graduated in 2005. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's got 3 daughters. One is going to BYU this year. The other one is graduating next year. Is that right? And then one very spoiled 8-year-old. And without further ado, the man that needs no more introduction, Lenny Shantha Huang.
Right. Has everybody seen this checklist? If you have not, that means you have not submitted a plan to the city yet. At least in the, well, we have evolved this checklist, several years, in the making. So this is basically the preliminary checklist. Okay. So the very first thing you see there, it's a site plan. We would not be able to review your plan if you don't have a site plan. That's pretty self-explanatory, right? Conceptual / preliminary grading and drainage plan. Okay, we're trying to get away from having a client come to you guys and said, we want a building. Let's put a building here, and then design the building. And the next thing you know is that, oh, now we have storm drain issues. We have water issues. We can't do that anymore. Okay, everything has to evolve from the conceptual drainage plan. Okay, and then work your way out. Because again, that building cannot function without the conceptual / preliminary. Actually, there are, we try to break that into 2 phases, but we're still working on that. A conceptual is a little bit different than a preliminary. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Yeah. Let's come back to this checklist. A utility plan. If you're building a building, obviously you will need a utility plan. You need water, you need sewer, storm drain, electrical, gas. So pretty self-explanatory. Okay. Plans and profiles. If you're not building a road, it's not required. If you are building a road, then yes, that's what plans and profiles are for. Landscape plan and notes and details. Those are the plan portion. We also require the documentations to be submitted as well. The conceptual / preliminary storm water analysis need to be submitted. Okay, I believe I have rejected a lot of plans because they do not have some of these. I just said resubmit. Again, it goes back to the fact that the client wants a building there without any infrastructure. We can't do that. Yeah. Any questions so far for preliminary? Yes.
system with that city that they. We have to kind of start over. You didn't think of this, you didn't do this.
Yep. And
If they wouldn't have been able to submit to the city, they wouldn't have, that was the only reason why they came to the civil engineers, because they said, this is in the checklist, need to have
correct,
drainage.
correct. Good job. Good point. Again, we want to emphasize that we need to have the utilities, the storm drain, the water at bat, not the building first. Yes, this is our actual requirement. We had a similar meeting yesterday with them. Yeah, we talked about this process here. Again, they are aware of this checklist, and if they missed it, I will catch it. Yeah, and it will be rejected. I guess they want me to be a little bit more soft, not use the word rejected. They want me to use insufficient information, resubmit. That's right. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah. Right. At the conceptual site, obviously, as far as slumbering is concerned, you have to identify where your discharge is going to be, right? Where's the outfall? Is there any? Is your soil restricted? Is it clay? If there's nothing around it, do you have to do full retention? Do you have to do a flow through? Again, all those questions need to be addressed at the conceptual plan, right?
Yeah, we're not necessarily looking for a full grading plan, like where the inlets are, the elevations of the inlets. We're looking for the basics of the site, like Lenny is mentioning, and not necessarily any details for that. That's what Tyler was talking about, where we build upon. So we've got a foundation now of what we're looking at stormwater wise. Now we can build on that with the details of pipe sizes, inlets, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, and we developed some checklists that.
We'll talk about the checklist that we have developed that you guys could use as a guideline. Yeah.
Preliminary, as the civil engineer. But we're hoping that correct them and find the constraints, the limiting factors that you tell them, look, you can't do this because you have to go full retention based on. At that preliminary stage, you're identifying 6 points that can't. You got a construction time here, that's going to fix. We've got to do full retention, so I need to have at least X amount surface area to volume responded. Those items that are immovable and that we know as engineers have to be on site are what we need to get to the client so that they can then design the movable in a manner that doesn't cause conflict down the road. That preliminary site plan approval, those fixed pieces are in place, and then we can play with the grades and roadway alignments a little bit more, but we know we've got fixed timing points. We know what type of A, B1, B2, B3 we're doing, and then that's going to dictate the rest of the site work.
Yes, we're actually doing the owners a favor here. Okay, instead of, like Dale was saying, instead of having the architect design something already, and then now they have a big problem because they don't know where to discharge the storm drain. They have to come to you guys and try to solve the impossible project, right? We want to revert that and start with the engineering.
I see this all the time. I know you do. They come to you with this building that fills the entire site. There's no room for any infrastructure, and they say, make this fit on this site.
It doesn't always, it's not always going to work, and we have to correct them at the preliminary stage if it's not going to work, and redirect our architects to get a building that does work.
Right. We were, I was just reviewing a plan that shows, connecting to a storm drain at this manhole. And yet, when we went and looked at it, that manhole does not exist. That's a big problem, right? But again, it could be catch at the conceptual / preliminary stage. You guys could send a surveyor to go do your stuff, your flow line, etc. Right? That's correct. I mean, again, if
Before they can even create a concept plan,
correct, exactly. Where is that one at, Tyler? The double ring.
Yeah, go up.
the challenge
little
with
bit
that
further.
is a good geotechnical engineer will
Right there.
ask for design work to work together. And at the point you're asking for, he doesn't have enough information. He doesn't know how big the building.
Well, that conceptual or preliminary, you can use soil data that we provide. It gives you a general.
A general,
idea
yep.
or a basis for doing your stormwater design. Then when they start doing their design loads, which is geotech report, find that down. Really, we're not looking for a lot of details. We're just wanting that baseline with the conceptual plan.
Okay,
And we
so-
build upon that.
So the geotechnical report would be required?
At some point, it's going to be required, right? That's not.
Not at the conceptuals. When you look at the conceptuals, I would just go to this. Okay, I mean, you could use this table 11 right here is very conservative. Right? I would use that for now, at the conceptuals. As you fine tune your site, then you want to, again, as engineers, whether you build a building, if money is not an object, you could just put a brick, right? And it's gonna cost you a lot of money because it's gonna require a lot of material, right? But as an engineer, what do we do? We minimize it. So the cost comes down. Same thing. Yeah, the pond could be big, but as an engineer, we minimize it.
I'm doing just my quick calculation in my head. The sand, you go 60 minutes per inch, 60 minutes per 8 inches. That's the only one that even makes sense with any calculations. All the other ones are so slow that it doesn't really help,
Again,
the way I look at it. I mean,
sure.
the sandy loam is 1 inch per hour. That's 60 minutes per inch.
Right.
You don't get any benefit from that calculation. Then you have to multiply it by 2.5 times. That doesn't even work, but there's zero benefit to just going 100% retention.
Right, that's why we gave you that options, that chart. A, A, B, B1, B2, B3. Yeah, I mean, again, go through that flow chart and see what's best for your client. Yeah. Good comment, yes.
One thing, a bit of a challenge that we're dealing with is right now, the way a Sandy City's submittal process is you have preliminaries and final. In my mind, tried pushing this, but it's not happened yet. But I think there needs to be even before that. There really needs to be a conceptual. Because we're trying to, stormwater is kind of driving the site plan now. And we really need, I mean, we've called it a conceptual / preliminary because we don't have a conceptual stage right now. So we've combined the two, but our recommendation is that, or big recommendation is that you
Come talk to us.
actually, there's a checklist that Lenny's gonna, talk about, but there is a concept plan that we say, hey, we recommend that you do this concept plan. It could be fairly simple, but show us what you're thinking. You may not even have to go through the infiltration rates at that point, but just show us what you're thinking. We think our retention pond is gonna go here, we're gonna do, sorry, some retention here, our water quality volume will be included in that retention area. And then we're gonna have detention over here. The detention pond is going to outlet to the system here. And that would at least give us an opportunity to say, oh, there's not even a manhole right there that you're saying you're gonna connect to. Does that, if that makes sense? So we're not quite sure how to merge those together, but that's kind of the challenge that we're facing.
Yep. I think most of you have called me, and asked me, Lenny, I got a problem, right? And then we jump in Zoom or, Teams, and then we brainstorm, right? But we want that to be at the very beginning. So it's, again, we're trying to not solve the biggest problem, right? Yeah. So this is preliminary, yeah? This is final. Obviously, again, it builds upon the preliminary design. Obviously, you're gonna have site plan. You have the final grading and drainage plan. Utility plan, of course. And some profiles. Landscape plan and irrigation plan. And obviously notes and details. Those are these checklists on the plan set are pretty self-explanatory. Okay. On the document side, we would require the post-construction agreement. Okay, even a preliminary one. Yeah, because again, as your site evolve into final, you don't know yet, right? I mean, Dave, I'm going to pick on you here. The high property, right? How often do you have to change the Exhibit C? 6 months so far. Why did it change? No, because I'll answer it because the system kind of evolved.
You get some different.
Yep. Correct. Yeah.
Andy, that's why we're now requiring the post-construction
At the very beginning,
well,
no, at the final,
Final.
at the first final. Yep, at the first final. Okay. We also are requiring a SWIP and NOI. At the a draft version, right? Obviously, we understand that at the final stage, first final, most of the owner doesn't have a contractor.
That's what I was gonna mention. Really can't require,
That's fine. I mean, but submit something, that is filled out. So again, we want to build, again, the concept of building upon the previous set. So when the owner have a contractor, all they have to do is just fill out their portion. And they're done.
And I can understand what you're trying to do. The challenge is sometimes the contractor doesn't want to be dictated by the engineer what he has to do for a SWIP. There's plenty of companies out there that that's what they do. That's all they do is prepare a SWIP report.
Yes.
SWIP documents. And so they may feel like liability is less for them to hire one of those companies. So
The problems that I see with that though is that at the end, once everything's done, there's several projects. I mean, the plans are perfect. Can't sign off on it because I have a SWIP. You know what I mean? I mean, they have a contractor, but they're waiting for a third company to do it for them. And again, it's going to take another, 2 or 3 weeks. We're just trying to help the owner here.
I am curious, just with having you guys all here, this is something we've struggled with. Because we have to have a SWIP before, with the state tells us we have to have a SWIP before we can sign off. But I see your point in that it's this chicken and
and I'm
egg
not
situation,
situation,
but
you can't issue the building permit. I mean, you need to hold the building permit up for having this.
It's before that too. It's before site plan, before they dig. Yeah, that's. Yep. Yep. No.
talking about.
No, because again, the site plan has to be approved before building permit is granted, right?
Funny, that's true, but it's not gonna have to be done if you have a contractor. And so, take a contract. At that point, they can hire us, to do, or they can hire an independent company that doesn't. And then submit that before they actually get get started on the work.
Right,
Other jurisdictions do that.
yes, but
Sandy's a little different.
again, we're trying to get away from that 3 week. I mean, some of the, like I said, there are some projects that has been approved, have contractor, and again, the contractor is like,
When you say that hasn't been approved, that it can't, how you regulate it, how you control the land disturbance permit, at that point, you have to SWIP, and at that point.
Maybe that's something we.
well, yeah,
About more. I think it's a communication issue. If your client has known expectations and you provide as an optional service, we'll prepare a SWIP document for you to use. And if they decline that, then you have to say, okay, but this will still be required before your permit's issued. So make sure that you and your contractor are doing this independently. It's not our fault if our stuff's done and then you don't have a SWIP and it takes 4 more weeks to get the permit.
yep. We're just trying to help out the owner, that's all. So, yeah.
Help out the owner to stay within the state.
right, correct, yep. Okay, let's see here, let's see where I'm at. Okay, post constructions, that's a requirement. A SWIP, that's a requirement, and then we also need the final storm drain analysis report. Now, going back to the preliminary, you submitted the conceptual / preliminary, right? So now you're building upon that. If you have submitted plan recently, you submit plan through CityWorks. Right? Anybody have an account? So, Cam? So again, if you call me and said it's been there, sitting there for a while, I mean, and it had the actual file, it hasn't changed. So I'm not, if it's submitted like 3 months ago, I'm gonna tell you, I need the updated one, uploaded. Cam? No, we see them. When it comes in, we see them. Yeah. All right, see here. So that's the final. All right, so here's the conceptual storm drain analysis checklist. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Just similar to just any of the plan set that you guys have developed. We're gonna put this in the website, Cam, and then we have your email now, so we'll send you a we'll send you a link. Cam? Yep. So basically, this is the conceptuals. Notice it's the conceptuals is like 1 page checklist. Yeah. The preliminary is little, again, we build more on it. So there's more stuff to do, more stuff to add to it. Correct.
So there's
Correct.
some of this that you were already done.
Mhm.
It's not like that you're having to come back and redo it unless changes cause.
You're just building upon the previous reports. Okay. That's the preliminary storm drain. I mean, I don't want to go into the details because we're gonna be sending you a link. You're gonna have that in the next day or 2. Okay. And here's the final. Again, more stuff to do. It builds upon the conceptuals, preliminary, and final. And again, we're here. Usually it's just me and Tyler too. We're trying to get Tyler be reviewing the storm drain. We're here as a resource. If you have a client that has a project in Sandy, come talk to us. Where's ask us, where's the storm drain line? Some of you have. So we just need to do that more upfront. Okay? That's it. Any questions?
Give Lenny a round of applause. Thanks, Lenny. Before we break, I just have one question for you guys, and it is an important one. This is not a joke. We want to know, what are we doing good and what are we not doing so good? What is our city doing that you appreciate? What are other cities doing that you appreciate that you'd like to see us do? And just raise your hand. I'll pick on you if you got any comments or anything.
Appreciate what you guys done today.
Okay. Anything else?
You have a problem with city work too?
So just so you guys are aware, Jared, Gerber was, the administrator for that. He's now moved into the, administration. So they're actually hiring a specific person for that now. They're in that process. So they will have a specific contact individual that's all they'll do is city works for the planning department.
Right now.
Right now, we don't have anybody.
Just call.
Yeah, Mike Wilcox.
We had some problems with different people, no answer from anybody.
So Mike Wilcox is your,
Bad, and now you have to submit.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike Wilcox, he is the new director of.
yes, yeah, so he, yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
So he is your direct contact.
Yep,
And if you have any issue with the girls.
whether he likes it or not.
Contact Mike.
That's why we can't get a hold of it.
Yeah, right.
Maybe we'll have, I didn't talk to him, maybe we'll have, city board workshop.
Yes,
As we implement this, Alan and I was saying, it would be a good idea to have some type of training, with the city as well as with engineers that is working on a plan. So that's why we have this new space.
I think
Yeah.
you should also consider when a SWIFT is going to be. That a later discussion, but that's something we really should do. Because whether we're working in Draper or South Jordan, or West Jordan, or whatever, they're all different.
yes,
Danny's the only one that, well, can't speak up, I can't remember. But, you have it. Not required to do the SWIFT. When the contractor's on board and they're doing the service. That's in Draper, South.
Then, again.
So I think you need to revisit that.
We'll look at that.
yeah,
The problem that I see with that is that the contractor or the owner wants to dig even before the plan is approved.
Well, yeah, so that's an enforcement issue. It's not it shouldn't be a requirement to hold up receiving plans and approval moving forward, which is what's happened. But even moving forward to get a final approval of a plat or a commercial site, that we know they have stamped approved plans subject to.
yeah, and this is something that we have had many discussions. Yeah.
That's the goal. Be consistent with other jurisdictions. That would help.
Yeah, I'll, draft it.
There's a place, just to echo what David's saying, is if it could move to when the improvement guarantee is submitted. Now we're at the end where we have the contractor in place. The hard part is we keep getting, and I'm not saying it's Sandy, it's in Springville.
Fascinating.
You get a comment in every time that the SWIP isn't complete, submit to completed NOI. Like, well, we have the contract. They're the one. That's where we're.
Yeah.
By the time, when the improvement guarantee is submitted, usually at that time, they know whether that's, it's revegetation for a land disturbance, or it's an improvement, if they're gonna do site work, or for some of us that do commercial work, that means we're not really gonna start until we get the building permit. When that improvement guarantee is submitted, that way we know.
Yeah, I think,
I just
Chris,
to let you guys know, that's not just a Sandy City issue, that seven municipalities have the same issue with swimming, so don't feel like everyone's picking on you.
Oh,
no, no, no.
It's an issue across the board.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see, but we have this exact.
Let's be honest, Sandy City is the best anyway. I mean, that's just all there is to it.
On that note, I do want to say I really appreciate it.
As do we.
Infinitely better than.
Yes. Yes, that is one good thing that came from COVID. Yes, we did. Yes.
Is that for sites larger than 10 acres though, or that's all ponds?
Because we've typically just used our little Excel thing and been like, you know, we know it's a little oversized, but so, you know. every little pond-
Using the SDS crew member method.
Residential homes, single home.
No. Those would be more on the retention side.
Yeah.
So you're looking at just the volume.
The single lot, we're still allowing the rational.
Yeah.
Single lot.
Well, but it needs to be used, the SDS curve number method for, then you're just looking at your volume.
Yeah, the volumes method you provided to calculate that
Yeah,
volume,
that's-
using the SCS method is perfect for that.
Yeah.
It's because it's all retained.
Exactly.
Okay. Yes.
So I'm gonna be ignorant and ask this question. Does the city have a stormwater impact fee that they charge?
Yes, we do. So we have what's called an ERU, equivalent residential unit, that is charged, each home in the city is charged one ERU for stormwater, one for streetlights. That's a monthly fee that a homeowner pays, or a business. A business will, depending on the hard surface area that they have, they pay multiple ERUs based upon the square footage of their hard surface.
So if they pushed or elect to go into a 100-year storm retention system, can
Uh-huh.
they waive that requirement for the stormwater impact fees?
So the, neither the ERUs, but there's also an impact fee. It's a one-time fee for the site. So I believe we started doing it in the early 80s. If a site is being redeveloped that was developed before then and did not pay a stormwater impact fee, they'll have to pay that. If it's a new site, they will also have to pay that. That's based upon the usage type and the size of the property as well. That's only one time. They pay that, they're done. As long as we have record of that, if the property owner has record or the city has record of that being paid, that's a one-time fee that doesn't have to be paid again. In some circumstances, like school district, for example, many of their properties did not pay that because they were all developed before they started charging that. We'll charge on a disturbance area. So they came in with a lot of redevelopment in the past few years. We only charge them for the disturbance area for that stormwater impact fee. If they come in and want to do something else where they haven't paid for it, I'll have to pay for it.
So, but if a site is developed and it's completely retaining their stormwater on the site.
It used to be that case, but because of LID standards with the state, it's pretty much a requirement to retain water on every site. So we wouldn't technically be able to collect a stormwater impact fee because they are all doing it. All sites are doing it at this point. So it used to be that the case, but that has changed since the requirements have changed. Yeah. And
The
mo,
only time that we waive storm drain impact fees is if the public's water system is going into. That makes sense.
so if we're utilizing their pond for our stormwater, then we would waive that fee. Is there any other? Everybody, do you guys need to do jumping jacks? Well, I'll tell you this, there's caffeine back there. Take one with you for the road. Okay, we appreciate. I have not had 4 yet, okay? We appreciate all you coming. Thank you very much. Please, if you have anything bad to say, call Lenny, okay?